Everybody out there in Helix land, Doc Brown here, product specialist with Line 6. We're back again for another weekly live stream. This week we're going to be checking out some of the models in 3.0. Thought I'd start off with just a little funky playing, kind of been working on some Ben Lacey style ideas recently. Sorry I got a little background noise going on today. I'm in the Chicago area, and if you haven't heard, we just got a ton of snow and we have some Arctic air going on, so sorry about that little background noise. It should kick off in just a few minutes here, but it's pretty cold here. As you can tell, I'm bundled up. I got a couple layers, but as I said, we're not talking about the weather today. We're talking all about some of the new stuff in Helix 3.0. So let's go ahead and dive in with that. And let me just start out by pointing out what I'm going to be talking about today. So there's some awesome new models in 3.0. And a couple of these I'm going to talk about are actually my favorites. I'm going to start off with the US Princess, which is a new amp model. It's based off the Fender Princeton style amp. We have a new amp model of that, and we have two new cabs to go with it that I'm going to touch on. Then we're going to talk about the glitch delay, which is a wild new crazy delay model. The guys up at the Victoria team helped work on that, so I'm going to talk about that, how it works, break down some of the parameters, and then finally we're going to wrap it up with the Acoustic Sim, which is just another great sounding model, one of my favorites. So thank you all for checking in. Let's see here, taking a look at the comments. Playing awesome, beard awesome. Turn up your voice a little bit. Sure thing. Let me boost the gain a little there. Let me know if that sounds a little better there, Tone Shack. Hey Nick, hey Nikki T, hey Jim. Hello from South Africa. Hello to you too. I bet the weather's a little warmer there than in Chicago. Alright, so once again, if you're just joining us, like I said, I'm here in Chicago. It's a bit cold, so you're going to hear some background noise for the first few minutes here. That's going to go away. But let's go ahead and take a look now at this US Princeton model. Alright, let's dive into this. So, the US Princeton is a classic amp that's going all the way back to 1947, originally coming out as this 4-watt small amp called the Woody. And originally it was actually closer to like a Fender Champ in its, amp design. And then as the years go on, it gets closer more to like a Fender Deluxe style circuit. So as the years go on, it gets a bigger cabinet, you start adding things like tone controls, you get different tubes, there's versions with tremolo, there's versions with reverbs, all those types of things. So because of its size, it's always been a really sought after recording amp. You can get these great tones, at studio friendly volumes. So from really nice cleans to, classic sort of Fender breakup tones. We're going to be talking all about those. And just to kind of talk about, where else the US Princeton has gone, or the Fender Princeton, excuse me, you might know it. It's particularly famous for being the basis of Mesa Boogie's Mark I amps. So that was a heavily modified Princeton that was, had a modified preamp and a basement transformer and pushed the wattage up to 60 watts. So they really souped it up, and that kind of, that's the Mesa Mark I type of thing. So just a little fun facts coming at you quick there. Lucas says stop talking and start with metal. Well, I'm going to stop talking now, Lucas, but we're not going to get to the metal right away because this Princeton amp is fairly clean, doesn't gent or anything like that. So let's dive in. So I'm just going to click on and off the amp model real quick. Let's just start with the factory settings here and just take a look at what we're hearing. So I'm playing with the Strat style Pacifica right now, and I'm going to start on the neck pickup. I have some humbuckers here, but I can split them to get single coil tones. Let's just see what this humbucker sound is like. So that's a pretty nice sound there, just kind of starting to get into the realm of breakup there. So let's go ahead and mess around with some of these parameters and see what we can do. If you're familiar with it, any of my live streams or my playing style, you know that I love clean tones. I'm all about jazz and things like that, funk, those types of sounds. So let's go ahead and just clean this up and just see the types of sounds we can get there. You can get just a really great Fender clean with this. I'm just going to back off the drive a little bit here. I like my Fender amps to be EQ'd pretty much straight up the middle a lot of the times. For a lot of jazz situations, I will boost the mids. I'm a big Grant Green fan. If you know anything about his tone or his style, his basic idea was just to put the mids on 10 on a Fender amp. So let's just kind of put the EQ straight up the middle, add a bit of presence here, and just get a really nice squeaky Fender Clean sound. So let's see what this sounds like. I'm also going to take up the channel volume here. So that's a really clean Fender sound happening there. Once again, I'm on the neck pickup humbucker. Let's see if we get a little single coil action happening there. Really nice, super clean sound there, but what I like about it is it gives a lot of the woody characteristics of the guitar too. So you're getting that nice Fender sort of clean sound, but it really brings out, you know, just the guitar playing, what's happening there. So I love it from that standpoint. That's sort of a clean, funky sound. Of course, you know, if I head back to my neck pickup, maybe go back to humbucker mode, roll off the tone, you can get some nice warmer sounds too. So maybe this type of thing. Nice full thick sounds there from this little amp. So that's kind of some of the cleaner sides of things we can do. We do have some other effects to get to, so I don't want to spend too long on the Princeton. Let's check out what happens as we come up on the drive now. So this amp also sounds really great broken up. I mean, from classic rock to even more modern indie tones. I'm just going to start with the drive at 10 and then maybe we'll work backwards from there. I'm just going to bump down the channel volume now since we're going to get a little more volume from that drive. And I'm going to start on my bridge pickup with the humbucker here, and let's just hear what we got. That's a really nice broken up sound there to my ears. Kind of gets that, you know, really pushed small amp, almost like a Champ type of thing, but you know, it's a bit different flavor going on there. So that's a pretty cool sound happening there with the drive at 10. We could, of course, you know, bring it back a little bit so it's not, you know, so all out. Let's hear what we got. Maybe a little more edge of breakup. So a little more definition there when it's not fully saturated with drive there. So really cool amp. It's got a lot of nice sparkle to it, got a lot of nice definition to it. I think one of the reasons this amp sounds so good, and Ben Adrian talks about this in one of our recent Line 6 backstage videos. There's a nice little chat between Paul Hindmarsh and Eric Klein and Ben Adrian and Andy Paredes, where they're talking about just all things going on at Line 6, and Ben talks about the modeling that goes into this amp, and they actually used his personal Silverface Silverface Fender Princeton amp to make this, and he's, you know, a super heavy amp nerd. He really knows his stuff, so he went through the amp, you know, it's his personal amp, and he replaced a lot of the things that, you know, were old or worn out or weren't functioning well anymore, and he really just made this amp the best it could possibly be. So I think not only him knowing the amp really well, but fixing it up, and of course Line 6 is always getting better at modeling, but gosh, what an amazing model. This is probably one of my favorite amp models now in Helix, so that's pretty cool. Let me hop over to the comments real quick, see how we're doing. Let's see, Nikki T. If you can turn down the guitar or turn up the voice, that would be better. Let's see, Nick is saying, yeah, bump up the voice. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully this is a little better now. Sorry about that. It could also be that, you know, I have this background noise going on, and I did have a little bit of a noise gate to kind of clamp it down so it wasn't so obnoxious. But now that noise has subsided, hopefully we're getting some better audio volume coming from the voice here. Sorry about that. So let's head back to our Fender Princeton real quick. Thank you for those comments. And the other thing I wanted to show you real quick is the two different cab models we have in here. So we have a standard 1x10 that you would find in, a normal stock Princeton amp. But as I said, these amps are pretty popular when it comes to modding and, hot rodding them. So a lot of things, players do is they switch over to 12-inch cabinet just for a different sound. To me, the 10-inch sounds a bit more focused, a bit more pronounced in the high end, and then, a bit different sound in the 12-inch. We had a little bit of bass and things like that. But let's go ahead and hear them back to back. I'll start with the 10-inch speaker, which we've been hearing. I'm going to clean up the amp again, and let's just go ahead and hear those back to back. There's that 10-inch cabinet there. We're going to switch over to the 12-inch now. And you could tell that those cabinets respond a bit differently to the amp even. They each break up in a slightly different way. So I'm forgetting a little bit on the type of speakers in there, but I believe on the 10-inch, you have a standard Fender Jensen, and I believe on the 12-inch it's a different type of speaker. I forget if it's a Celestion or some sort of Alnico. I'll have to go back and double check that. But another cool part of this is that, these speakers, they respond differently to the amp, and you could start to hear and feel those types of things in the modeling, so that's really cool. Awesome. Let's see, John is saying, could still use a little boost. Yeah, sure thing, you got it. Let me keep going up on my vocals here. Okay, hopefully you guys are hearing me loud and clear now. Cool, so that's a little bit about the Fender Princeton amp. Let's jump over to the glitch delay real quick. So I'll just keep the kind of Princeton setup where it is, and we'll dive into this glitch delay. Once again, I have this set up with just the factory settings going on here. So let's go ahead, turn it on, just hear what we have, and then I'm going to take you through all these parameters and how they work and how they interact with each other. It's really kind of wild, but it's a pretty neat effect. So here's just a quick plain example if you aren't familiar with it. Alrighty, so obviously there's some crazy stuff happening there. Not only do we have delay repeats ringing out, but we also have, these sorts of chops happening to each individual repeats, which gives it, its name, the glitch delay. You get all these sort of glitchy type things. So let's go ahead and dive into what's happening here. So the only thing that I have changed is I've changed the note sync from a time value, either seconds or milliseconds. I've gone ahead and set it to quarter notes, just so we can kind of get a clear idea of what's going on here. So I'm going to start just by tapping out a tempo, just 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's go ahead and start by turning everything down to 0. I think that's going to really help us hear how these individual parameters affect the actual delay repeats. So I'm going to leave the mix and feedback up so we can still hear, the repeats. But right now, with everything at 0, if I just play a few notes, we should just get an even standard delay repeat. It's just going to sound like a normal delay pedal. Cool. So that's a normal sounding delay. Sounds great. The magic of the glitch delay is when we start to mess with all these parameters I just turned to 0. But let's go ahead and start with delay divide. Just Go On says, is this the same model for HX Stomp? Yep, you got it. Everything I'm talking about here, the US Princess, the glitch delay, the Acoustic Sim, you're going to find those in HX Stomp as well. Thank you for that question. Alright, so here's the glitch delay. We just kind of took it through with all the parameters at 0, and now we're going to start affecting things. So this first parameter is called delay division or delay divide, and it basically divides that delay time into smaller increments. So those individual repeats are going to start to get chopped up as I turn that up. So let's go ahead and turn that up to I like odd numbers for this. Let's go 7. So hopefully you can hear that some of those delay repeats start to get chopped up. They sound a little glitchy. Basically so. Let's hear it again. tried to leave a little more space between the notes as I went there, just so you can kind of hear some of those glitchy delay repeats in between my playing. Cool, so hopefully that's making sense so far. That's starting to chop up the individual repeats. Next, we can get into slice feedback, and that controls the number of repeats heard for those individual slices. So I believe what it's doing is the slices we've already made can get even choppier and have their own repeats applied to them. So let's go ahead and turn up that slice feedback and hear how it works. I'm going to start right in the middle here at 50%. So here we go. Turn that back down so that feedback dies out a little quicker there. But hopefully you can hear now that we're starting to add more delay repeats to our mix. Basically all those individual slices are now getting their own delay and they're repeating on. So we're getting a larger, bigger, undulating texture going on here. So pretty cool stuff. Let me check the comments real quick because some of this is pretty crazy. We want to make sure everybody's following along. Awesome. All right, looks like we're doing good here. Cool. Let's go ahead and keep moving now. Let's go ahead and talk about the shuffle. So shuffle is going to take these individual chops and it's going to put them in different orders. So this is where stuff really gets chaotic. So things are going to be happening basically out of sequence that you played them. So let's go ahead and turn that shuffle up now. We'll turn it up pretty high so we can actually, really notice this effect. Let's go ahead and hear that. Hopefully you can start to hear now that things are starting to jump out of order. It's becoming even more glitchier. One more time with that shuffle. Let's turn it all the way up. Hopefully you can hear now that we're starting to get some pretty crazy sounds. Things are jumping back and forth. Things are going out of order. Before we get to the next set of parameters, I want to jump to the last one now because you may have noticed that some of these, glitches and chops and delays and things, the transients, can really start to build up, especially when you have a whole bunch of divisions going on and then those have their own divisions and they're getting shuffled around. The transients can be, really choppy and almost just sound like pops and clicks because they get so chopped up. So to make it a little more smoother, a little more synth-like, you can head to this smoothing parameter, and that's going to help to kind of even out and smooth those transients. Let's go ahead and turn that up just to kind of make our sound a little more palatable. So here we go. There's a quick soup of notes for you just to kind of, hopefully you can hear that smoothing almost, it's like a violin-like effect. Instead of having these little choppy bleeps and bloops, you have these more things that kind of, decay in and out, which is rather nice. So I think it makes it a little more musical, just depending on, what you're going for. I could see all those kind of, more glitchy, abrupt sounds being really cool too. All right, let's go ahead now and dive into these other parameters I just skipped over. So the first one's octaves, and this basically determines the likelihood of your repeats being played back an octave higher or lower. So that's pretty cool, pretty far out as it were. Let's go ahead and turn that 50%, hear how it affects our sound. So I think you should be able to hear now things jumping up. I heard a lot of things jumping up the octave in there. I didn't know if I heard as much going down. Let's turn it up a little bit more and see if we can get a little more mix of some down octaves. So once again, a lot of, kind of upper octave sparkly stuff, but I am hearing some lower things going on in there. And then finally, let's go ahead and mess with this reverse parameter. So you probably already figured out what this means. Basically, you're going to take your repeats and some of those are going to be played back in reverse. So there's a whole bunch of kind of random chaotic stuff with going on with this. I'm going to show you how you can have some control over that chaos next. So let's go ahead and just start with the reverse though. We'll turn that up. I'm going to turn the octaves to 50% as well. and I'm going to turn the reverse higher so we can hear how that jumps out. So let's go ahead and hear this now. This is some really weird stuff. If you just clicked on the stream and you just heard those noises, you're probably wondering what's going on. We're checking out the glitch delay here, which is like an effect that's its own performance tool. I mean, just playing a couple notes, I'm building huge textures, all these undulating sorts of things going on. I think it's pretty cool. Let me just hop over to the comments, making sure we're doing right over here. Let's see. Looks like Igor's hopping in, answering some questions about Big Sur. Thank you, Igor. Appreciate that. And Nikki T saying, I could see myself using this effect maybe once in 100 years. People seem to be fixated on it. Yeah, in some situations, I could see it being hard to use. How I've used it in my personal music lately has been sort of like a background type of thing. Having these sorts of weird glitch delays, having on, the fringes of the mix or, somewhere out there, kind of just adding a little ambience or sparkle or interest or movement to the song. There's a lot of different ways you can use it, and I'm interested to see what other people come up with. Alright, so we've been messing around with this glitch delay, and it's been pretty chaotic so far. We have these sorts of patterns that are happening, but how do we have any control over these patterns? So we can go ahead and mess with the sequence drift to go and have that. So when the sequence drift is set at 0, basically the same pattern is going to keep playing over and over. So if you want that pattern to change, or you want the let's say the shuffles to happen in different spots, you don't have complete control over that, but sequence drift will allow those things to start to change. So if I go ahead and turn this at 50%, I'm going to be playing, and basically all these things are going to be kind of happening at different points in the loop. And once I drop that to 0, it's going to go ahead and lock onto that pattern. So a really cool thing to do would be assign sequence drift to a foot switch and set it to go between some higher value down to 0. Once you're playing with the glitch delay and you find, a pattern that you really like, in all this random chaos, you can hit that foot switch, send the sequence drift to 0, and then you're locked into that pattern, so to speak. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to right click on the parameter, and I'm going to set it to foot switch 4 here. I'm going to head over to my bypass controller assign window, and let's see here, foot switch 4. Oh shoot, I'm getting lost. Anyways, I'm just going to do, that's because I have multiple things assigned to that foot switch. Sorry. Let me go ahead and fix this real quick. So I'm going to set the max value 50%, and I'll set the min value at 0%. That way we can go ahead and come up with some different sequences and lock them in. Alright, let's go ahead and try this out. So right now, cool, here we go. And that might be a little too crazy. I'm just going to turn down some of these parameters real quick. Alright, one more time. So hopefully you caught what I was doing there. If not, I'm going to break it down real quick. I kind of, had the settings set, somewhere where I kind of like the sounds I was getting. I turned the sequence drift up so it starts to mess with where those things are happening in the individual delay loop. And then once I kind of found something that I really liked, I went ahead and hit my foot switch so that sequence drift drops down to 0. And essentially I keep getting that same sequence pattern over and over. So at the end there, you hear me play the same arpeggio a couple times, and I'm getting that same, glitch delay sound happening with it. So it's a little bit of a way to control the chaos that's going on, is using that sequence drift parameter. Alright, so we've spent a bit of time here on this glitch delay, a couple more minutes than I wanted to. We've got about 5 more minutes left. If you guys have any questions, feel free to sound off in the comments. The last thing I want to touch on is this Acoustic Simulator. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off my amp and cab block, and we'll just work with the Acoustic Simulator here to start. Sometimes what I'll do, I will run this with like the preamp, the Studio 2 pre-model, but we'll see if we need to do that. I'm just going to start with the Acoustic Sim here. Let me pop over the comments to make sure we're running all right here. Let's see. Paul Navarro said the glitch delay would be cool to mix in at the tail end of a slow-lo. Sliding in subtly, maybe not so much for a main guitar lick unless you're Omar Rodriguez. Yeah, exactly. It's really can be a cool textural type thing. So yeah, I like that idea a lot, Paul. Thank you for that suggestion. Cool. So here's the Acoustic Simulator. Basically helps your electric guitar sound like an acoustic style instrument. And I tend to like this with single coil in the neck position, but you can get it to work, you know, with all types of pickups and all types of positions. So for me, I'm going to start in the neck position. I'm going to go ahead and split my coil. I haven't turned on, these are the factory settings, I believe. So let's just start from there and hear what we have. That's actually pretty good sounding right out of the box, but let's talk about some of these controls and what they do. So the mode is going to change the body style, and basically from these different bodies you're going to get some different, you know, timbres, some different sorts of EQing happening. So standard is, you know, probably just your standard straight up dreadnought style body. After that we head to a jumbo style body. We switch over here, and I usually think of, you know, jumbo style acoustics really great for, you know, big strummy types of things. So let's go ahead and maybe just hear a quick A-B of those. Slight difference there. You're probably going to hear it mostly in the low mids there. We have some different kind of change. Almost sounds like a change in depth, if you will. We have the enhanced setting. And then finally we have that piezo setting, which really just, you know, has that bright sort of cut through the mix sound that you have with those types of pickups. So I tend to stick to either standard or jumbo. I like those sounds. I do mess with the others though. Let's talk about some of the other controls that we have in here. So body is really affecting that depth, that low end sound. Let's see just what happens when we turn it to 0, and I think you're going to understand. So obviously that takes out a lot of the depth, a lot of that low mids in our sound. Let's go ahead and turn that back up about 5 where it was. So this is just basically helping you dial in the body size. I suppose if you wanted maybe a smaller, more parlor size, you know, in that sort of vein, you might turn down the body. And then if we turn it all the way up, obviously going to be pretty big and bassy. I'm not going to play too much on that setting because I don't particularly like that. Next, after that, we have the top. This is kind of like the opposite of body. It's really bringing out that sort of high-end sound, that sort of snap we're getting, that acoustic vibe. So if we turn it to 0, obviously going to have a darker sound. Sounds a bit muffled there. Head back to 5. And as we start to come up on that, it's going to get brighter, a bit snappier, you know, kind of that, basically the qualities that you get from the top of an acoustic guitar. That gets pretty bright and sparkly when we turn that top all the way up there. And then finally we have Shimmer, which to my ears adds almost a slight bit of chorus to it. I imagine, you know, sometimes when you're playing acoustic guitar, you know, you have reflections all coming from the sound box, and it's not happening completely evenly. So I think that's what Shimmer is trying to sort of imitate in this situation. But if we turn that down, it's going to sound a bit flatter, a bit duller. Not a bad sound, But as we headed up, you're gonna hear, you know, some more sparkle, some more depth, almost a little bit of chorusing happening to this sound. So let's go up to 5. So I can start to hear that shimmer, that sort of chorus happening, and let's turn it to 10 just to see. So that's pretty swirly sounding. I obviously wouldn't set it like that, but just to kind of show you the depth and the range of this particular parameter. Once again, you know, kind of providing that top end sort of sheen, shimmer that, you know, we love from acoustic guitars. So that's a really great sounding effect. Like I said, all 3 of these are just really excellent models and some of my favorites in 3.0. So we're just at the end of time here. I want to thank you guys for hanging out for another live stream. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place. I believe the illustrious Ross Bailey is going to be leading us through some awesome 3.0 features. So let me head back to the comments one more time, see if there's any last things. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any last comments or questions. If I am missing something, I'm gonna head back later and, you know, I'll be sure to answer them in the chat. But once again, thank you guys for hanging out, and we'll catch you next week.